What's going on, everyone? It's Elias here at the Rainy Forge, and I've got an awesome little project to work on today. We're working on a custom EDC knife with some Damascus, and this is the design, dubbed the Hummingbird knife. And this is a complete custom design from a customer that came to me and said this is what they wanted made, so this is what we're gonna do. Let's jump right into it. So I have here my stack of steel. We have 1095 and 15 and 20, which is pretty standard for any Damascus. Now I've gone ahead and put a little notch on all of my 15 and 20 pieces, and that's just to make sure that as I'm working with everything, if my steel gets mixed up, I know what's 15 and 20 and what's 1095, so I can get a proper stack and I don't have any double layers in there on accident, which will ruin your pattern. I also have here my mild steel bar, which is going to be my handle, and I'm just going to go ahead and weld that onto my billet, weld my billet up, stick it in the forge, and we'll get hammering. So here's our blade, all nice and polished up. So you saw me sand it. I took this to 1000 grit and then hit it on my buffing wheel. And then the most important step is to clean off any of the buffing compound that might be left on the blade. And also make sure that as you clean it off and wipe it down, there are no smudges or smears left over from whatever soap you use to clean off your blade. Because our next step is to dip this blade in a jar of ferric chloride. Now, ferric chloride is an acid, an etching solution, and what we want to do is we want to leave our knife in this ferric chloride for about 30 seconds to a minute, and what that will do is that'll slowly eat away at our steel, and it will eat away at the 1095 and the 15 and 20 at different levels. So we see that beautiful Damascus pattern. Now, if, for whatever reason, there are soap, scum, smears, anything on that blade, that will get etched into the steel, and you'll see it clear as day, and it'll look really ugly. So it's very important that you make sure to wipe all that off, and make sure your blade is nice and shiny clean, and then in she goes. Alright, so we'll go ahead and pick our blade up here out of the acid, and just let that acid drip off. And the next step that you want to do now is you want to wash all that acid off with water. And then I go through and hit it with some heavy-duty rubbing compound to knock as much of those oxides off as I can before I take it back over to my buffing wheel and make this blade nice and shiny and polished again. After that, we want to rinse and repeat the process until you get enough of an etching in your Damascus that you can actually start to feel it with the fingernail. Now, this is very important since the next step in the process is to dip our blade into an instant coffee bath, which will turn the 1095 nice and jet black. And if you have that etching nice and deep, it gives something for those oxides to really sit in and makes it more resistant to rubbing off as you use the knife, so it'll stay nice and black longer. So you can just see the Damascus pattern there, and I can just start to feel it with the fingernail. So our next step here is we're going to dunk it in our instant coffee bath. Now it's very important that we use this. This is Nescafe Classico. This is the best stuff for doing Damascus, I've found, and other bladesmiths have found. And you want to make a very, very, very strong mixture of this, usually about 1/3 of this container for this amount of water. And it's also important that you use distilled water, as our tap water in America has a lot of chlorine and fluoride in it, which are both bases, and that will basically neutralize your acid, and you won't get as good of an etch as you want. Now, we have brought this to about warm. We don't want it hot, we want it warm. And we'll just dunk the blade right in there, give it a little swirl, make sure it's nice and coated. And you leave that to sit for about 3 to 4 hours. You can check it as you go. When it gets to that certain point where you're happy with it, pull it out, let it sit for a second, and then rinse it off. So now that we have our blade finished, we're going to go ahead and make our bolsters. Now again, we're using stainless steel, and I actually have one here already just about finished. And so what's going to happen is we're going to use a brass pin, so that once this is attached, we have a nice little contrast, and that becomes the eyeball of our little hummingbird head shaped bolster here. So now I've gone ahead and I've traced out our second one. So we're just going to hop over to the angle grinder and cut this out, and then use a couple different Dremel bits to clean up our lines, make things nice and as perfectly uniform to this one as we can. So now that I have these done, before I go ahead and epoxy them onto our blade, I'm going to go ahead on my grinder here, and we're going to bevel around the front and around the top, just because once these are on the blade, that little bit overhangs over the blade, so it's going to be much, much easier to go ahead and bevel those beforehand rather than after the fact. As well as the fact that stainless steel obviously is a lot harder than wood, so once I have that handle all together, if I don't bevel them beforehand, it makes things a little bit tricky doing the transition from the steel to the wood on the grinder, because the grinder will take away material from the wood faster than it will the steel. Very doable, but this is just a little bit easier. So I've gone ahead and put our blue handle scales on, as well as our Hummingbird pin and a little stainless steel lanyard hole. So now we're going to go ahead and just grind this to shape. Thanks for watching till the end of the video. If you liked everything you saw here, well, please go ahead and hit that like button down below. And while you're there, if you're not already subscribed to this channel, well, please hit the big subscribe button as well. It really helps me and the channel grow, helps me to get more videos out to you guys quicker. Here's some of those if you're interested. And until next time, keep on keeping on.